Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage. You are looking at, and you may be surprised to be looking at, another vintage Pfaff sewing machine that I have recently found. It is I don't know if it's a rescue. I use the rescue series usually for machines that I know there's something wrong with them. But I purchased this, but I did not get it at one of the marketplaces that I described to many of you. I have a video where I talk about where I find vintage sewing machines and where you can find them. But there is, of course, the source, and I think I referred to it in that video, that you can also find vintage sewing machines at garage sales, just individual neighborhood garage sales. You can find them at church bazaars, and you can also find them in thrift stores. Now, if I'm out and about, and if I really want to, I could plan a whole weekend of going to every thrift store in town looking for machines. That is can be a lot of fun, especially if you're looking for other thrift things, or maybe you just want to get out of the house. There's something wonderful about getting off our internet screens and just go shopping and looking. Nothing wrong with that. I normally will often look online simply because it's much more efficient in terms of the use of my time when I'm trying to see what's out there. But this was a reminder that you can find interesting machines in thrift stores. So I was in this thrift store looking for something else. I went in there and I can't remember what it was. I think it was I was looking for a piece of china to replace something I had broken. I don't know what it was, to be honest. But I went in there and I went, as I turned to my right, there's a place where they keep all kinds of housewares that they are selling. And here it is. When I got into the store, I actually saw the table. And they had the table, this 1950s table. You can tell by the mid-century look. And of course, it had this little sewing stool that came with it. This is original to this table, I believe. You will see some variation in the wood tone, but that has to do with the variety of wood. They would have used the same stain color. So I see the table, and right, when you see a table and you see a line in the top, that's usually a pretty good hint that it is a sewing table. Sometimes you open it up and there's nothing in it because someone's just donated the table, because the tables are so well made and they can certainly be repurposed. You never want to throw away a sewing table just because it doesn't have a machine. So I opened, there was stuff on top of the table and I had to clear all that off. Sometimes stores, they get in a hurry, they do the best they can. And so I opened it up and I saw a machine laying, obviously the way machines lay when they are tucked under, put away in these tables, and it was black. That's all I knew. So I grabbed it, pulled it up, and it was a Pfaff Model 30. I'm like, oh, well, how about that? So I wanted to kind of share with you a couple of things that might be helpful. And that is, in some ways, first, let's talk about the thrift stores. So if you enjoy thrift stores and maybe you're going in there looking, again, you can go to a thrift store every week and you won't see anything, and all of a sudden, boom, you may see 3 vintage machines or 1. You just never know, right? It's kind of a serendipitous surprise. And you know what? Sometimes it's just nice to get away from the internet screens, looking on the marketplaces, and just go out, go out physically in the stores and see what's out there. So once I realized it was a Pfaff, I looked at the price. They wanted $30. That's $30 Canadian. And I had a 50%. They had 50% off day or whatever. They're always running some kind of promotion. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's $15. And I said, I went up and I said, I'll take it. Now, one of the things that I forgot to look at, I just assumed that the sewing stool came with the sewing table because they were originally together and they were donated together. Well, no. In fact, the thrift store had priced them separately, and they did this, I think, because not everyone wants the stool. Or it could be that they didn't know it went with the table. It's anyone's guess. The point is, they were separately priced, but it's okay. They weren't asking a lot for the stool. I think they wanted, $10 for the stool. So I ended up getting 25% off that because I'd already paid for the machine. And it was all's well that ends well. I did not give very much. I think, what did I spend with this? A little over $21 or something. And I got a vintage Pfaff. I have no idea if it runs because I haven't tried it. You all know my approach to waking up machines. Be gentle, right? First, do no harm. So anyway, so I'm in the store, and as I've mentioned to all of you, and I've tried to suggest that whenever you buy a machine, no matter where it is, maybe you're at a yard sale, maybe you just you found someone online, they've listed it, they have it at their house, please come get it, it's grandma's machine or whatever, we're selling it, or it's mom or my own and I just don't want it anymore. Always remember to ask if there are sewing supplies that came with it. Now, if you're in a thrift store, the person may say no, or they may not know. And sometimes they don't want to say they don't know, and they'll just say, well, I don't know, here it is, this is so. What should you do? Well, the first thing you want to do is look around the table. Are there bags or boxes? And I did that. I searched everywhere around the table, and I didn't see anything that looked like it held sewing supplies. So what's next? Of course, we want to check the drawers, because the drawers could have materials in them. And don't you know, sure enough, thankfully, I was like, oh, that's good to see, because being a Pfaff, a European sewing machine, not always is easy to get electricals. You can, but it's a lot of effort and a lot of expense. So I started looking at the cord. I started with the plug. When you have a European machine that you're looking to buy, just remember, it's very important that you understand that when you are looking at them, look at the plug, okay? Check it, inspect it, make sure it doesn't have any cracks, because if it does, it's probably been dropped, and that could be an issue. And then I've got my foot pedal here. This foot pedal is the same sort of white gold color that my Pfaff model number 6 is, or was. And that machine, it's so strange when you look at these things, you think, did it originally have a black pedal? I don't know. It's got the original cord, I know that. But there's no markings on this pedal. It could have been replaced at some point. You know, this machine could have been 5 years old in, I don't know, 1957 or whatever, and someone could have dropped the foot pedal and gotten a replacement. Who knows? So, but the cord itself is nice and soft. When I go to fold it, not harshly, but when I, just put it into loops, there are no cracks here. And it feels very good. And I literally run my thumb and fingers across it, and I'm not getting any of that crunchiness that you get with brittle cords, which tells you it's time to replace the cord. Now, the cord can be replaced, but you really want to make sure that you don't lose this, because unlike with Singers, you can get replacements for these cords, but you're going to hunt for a long time sometimes. You may even have to go back to Germany, go to eBay in Germany or what have you, and you will probably pay a lot for it. So this was one of the first things I looked at, because if this wasn't here, I would have thought twice. Okay? Now, what else is there to look at? Well, we've got a box, and it says Pfaff on it. It's embossed, so I know it's the Pfaff box. Now, again, it's beige. I would have thought that the original, I've seen Pfaff accessory boxes that were black with the gold lettering to coordinate with the machine. This one actually did not have that, but is it original? Maybe. What do we have here? We have seam guides. I'm not sure what the Allen wrench is doing in there, but again, you never know what happens to. Oh, look at this! It's a Pfaff packet. What's that? Needles? Well, there are none left, but it looks like someone kept their Pfaff needle packet. I've got some other pieces in here. Got some feet. You're going to see what I believe is a cording foot. We've got seam guides, thumb screws, and some rolled hammer feet. Different various feet. Nothing really exotic. But we have, and then of course I see here a Singer branded little screwdriver that you would use to adjust your bobbin case. So again, and thankfully I have the thumb screw that will be a knurled thumb screw that will be needed for putting that seam guide in, and I even have an original bobbin. So that's nice to have. It's not just the history of the machine, it's literally nice to have these. They add value to any vintage sewing machine. And, you may get lucky one day and get in an accessory box, you may get something that is actually rare. It happens. So what else is left in here? Well, I have a manual. And what's interesting is it says Pfaff 30, but notice the picture shows it as in a setup for a treadle. That is not surprising because even though this machine has a Pfaff motor and it has a Pfaff plug, those are original. However, back in the day, think about early 1950s. In the early 1950s, you had people, maybe people who were maybe more advanced in age, they had been sewing back before electricity was in machines. And so you would have had machines that were sold, say, potentially in treadle machines, and treadle tables, and yet you also had the option for the use of electricity. So I do believe that the table, you see this Pfaff, the table I'm showing you, I believe is the original table. And when I go to set this machine back in the table, I will we'll take a look to see if there's any sign that it's not. But it's entirely possible. It is also possible that this table came from another machine, but the fact that everything original is here with it, that tends to lead me to believe it's probably the original table. Now, take a look at this. Take a look at this this manual. I do not speak German, and I'm going to try this. And if I butcher this name, I apologize in advance to those of you who do speak German. Is it Gebrauchtsanleitung? I have no idea what that means. I don't know. But I do know that it is all in German, right? So what does that tell me? It tells me that whoever originally had this machine may have gotten it somewhere else. Because if you bought a Pfaff in North America, Canada, or the US, you would have gotten the English version of the manual. They wouldn't give you the German version. But remember, people emigrate from Europe, and when they do, sometimes they bring some of their most prized possessions. And remember how I've told all of you how expensive sewing machines were back in the day. You'd say, that's my sewing machine. I'm taking it with me. Now, I do not see on the bottom of the sewing pedal, there are no markings to tell me if what the voltage is for this. But I do have markings to show you. And I don't know if this is going to surprise any of you, but take a look at what it says. It doesn't say made in Germany or Germany on it. It says made in England. Ah, so this makes me wonder, and I believe that's original. I don't think it was customized by anyone. That would be a very strange thing to happen. I think apparently Pfaff was producing, or someone was producing for them under license, Pfaff sewing machines. And maybe it had to do with the fact that there were lots of there were basically trade rules, and there were probably tariffs that were blocking that. And just to reinforce that notion, if you look at the plug, look closely, everyone. What does it say? It says 2 amp. 2 amp? That seems okay. Now that's 2 amp capacity. That doesn't mean the motor is 2 amp, but it also says made in England. So the electrical is England. Okay, what does that tell us? Well, one thing it tells me is I'm not plugging this in until I've checked and inspected the motor, because I need to know if this motor is 110 volts or not. Because in the United Kingdom, I don't know a lot about their electrical system, but I believe they use something other than the 110 volt system that we use here in North America, both in the US and Canada. So let's just turn this. Oh, wow. Condition it's got some dust, but so far I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing there. Aha. So I put the machine on a towel, by the way, so I don't destroy the finish of this sewing table, which is in pretty good shape. All right. Now what's next? Well, I'm about to find out if I made a good decision here, or did I buy something and not pay attention, because the vast majority of the time, it's not an issue. So let's get closer in. Now, what does this motor say? Let's get myself out of the way, the camera. All right, we need more height. Now, give me just a moment to get set up here for you guys, because I want to zoom in and let's take a look at it together. It says, Toronto, Canada. CSA approval. CSA is similar to the UL certification in the United States, CSA. It says horsepower, but I can't make out the figure. I'm going to have to probably get a different magnifier for that. Then it says amps 0.9, okay, AC 75 DC, volts 120, okay. And then it says TRIC, London, England. Well, this is rather interesting, isn't it? Now, because it says Toronto on it and it has the CSA approval, I believe I am dealing with 110 volts. But this is curious to me. It says London, England, but it says Toronto. And I may have looked at this in the store. I honestly don't remember, but I'm thinking, okay, if this was only to be used in the United Kingdom, it would say normally 220 or 240 because they use a different voltage, and I would not be able to use this motor in North American electrical standards. I know some people will use transformers. I'm not a fan of those, so I would need to figure something out. Probably have to find another motor. So I think I'm okay. These are things you want to know. Again, it's very unusual to have a machine that someone brought from overseas. So what does this tell me? What I believe is that, like many of the British-made Singers, all of those that have the letter K on them, for example, I think what we may be looking at is a machine where the machine head, the main body of the machine, was built in a Pfaff factory in the United Kingdom. And because of the trade relationship that Canada had with the UK, I think that this is one of the areas. It's very possible that Pfaff, when they were distributing machines back in the day, they had quite a few machines coming in from Germany into North America, both the US and Canada. But some of their models, remember, they would have had different factories, and if they had a factory in the United Kingdom that could produce the Pfaff 30, they would not have wanted to produce it necessarily in more than one factory unless they were massive like Singer. So what I'm looking at, I believe, is the whole head of the machine, the body, the drivetrain, was all made in a factory in England. It specifically says England. It doesn't say Scotland, although we'll have to see where that factory was. And yet the electricals would have been either sourced or certified as running on Canada's electrical system. And this would also apply if it had been sold in the United States, it would have similar electrical specs, but it would say UL or Underwriters Laboratories. So, wow. Well, that's the first time I've ever had one like that. One last thing to leave with you before I conclude this video. When I was in the store, something interesting happened. I was looking in the drawers, as I showed you, and I was showing you all of the things I found in the drawers. Well, I happened to be looking down, and when I did, I saw some things on the floor. And what I saw were some of the things in this box. What had happened was, when this table, when the accessories were in the table, someone tilted the table in an angle that caused the accessories box to turn upside down, and then some of the accessories fell out of the drawers, and they were on the floor. They were literally, like that. They were just sitting on the floor. And I'm looking underneath the table, which you don't normally expect. You think, okay, well, they're in the drawer. Someone had messed with the table, and literally, I'm crawling around on the floor in this thrift store, picking up what I consider to be very precious pieces of history here with this Pfaff machine. And I'm sure other people thought I was nuts. I'm like, what are you doing? So I'm not cleaning or buffing the floor here. I was finding things. So the lesson there, guys, is wherever you get a machine, it could be in a thrift store, it could be in someone's home, it could be at a yard sale, church sale, whatever it is, always ask and then look very closely around. Look underneath. Nothing was in the little stool that I was mentioning earlier, but look in the stool. Maybe there are items in the stool, because many of these stools, not all, but many, have, of course, a removable seat cushion, and there's storage space in there. So never leave any stone unturned, because if you do, you could actually be missing out on something that's included. It's not like you're having to pay extra for these accessories, but my goodness. So what do you guys think? Again, it's a Pfaff, and I've told you in the past certain things that I look for or try to avoid with certain European machines. And this machine, just like the Pfaff Model 6 that I've done videos on, when I tilt it back gently, there is absolutely no timing belt. I don't have to concern myself with a timing belt should it be damaged or oil soaked. This particular model doesn't use one. Many of the great legendary Pfaff sewing machines that provide zigzag and sometimes very often multi-stitch capability, they will have that. Now, if you have a machine like that and it has the timing belt, if it's in great shape, carry on. You have a magnificent machine. But that's one less thing I have to be concerned about. So stay tuned and follow along with me, everyone, as I gradually, over time, I'm going to go through this machine and discover it. I have never worked on a Pfaff 30. I don't think so. And I've never seen a German machine made in England. How about that? For those of you who have these, for those of you who know the history of Pfaff production in England, this will not be news to you. Help us. Maybe you can help teach us. Put it down there in the comments. Where in England was the Pfaff factory? Do you have one of these? And does yours? I don't know if they do this in the UK, but right here, you see the remains of an oval sticker. Now in North America, I've seen it on both Canadian and American machines. It'll say not just machines that are made in Canada and US, but machines that were sold here, heavily marketed here. It'll have the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. I think I'll have to look closer again with a magnifying glass. I think that is what that is. It's a guess. But anyway, there you have it. Yet another Pfaff. It must be the season of Pfaffs, because I've gone a long time without doing Pfaff videos, as many of you know. But we're gonna look at this and discover its wonders together. I love it when those of you who watch my channel, you know that there are certain machines I've restored many times. I love them and I come back to them. But every once in a while, I get a machine I've never worked on before. And that to me is exciting. It's fun. Now, for some people, that's frightening. It's like, oh no, I don't know anything about this machine. But that's okay. That's how you learn. And like I said, if you have any interest, follow along as I create the series on this machine, and we'll all learn together. And again, please share your comments there. If you have a Pfaff 30, if you know anything about where in England the Pfaff factory would have been, this would have been after the Second World War when this machine was made. And if this video or any of the videos on this channel have been useful to you whatsoever, please consider donating. You can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link and help to support the channel and help me go out and find more finds just like this one, so that we can save as many of these machines as possible and get them into the hands of people who sew. Because as most of you know, I think napkins, dish towels, that's about as fancy as sewing as I could get, and I try to mend things, fix tote bag handles and so forth. But those of you who really are skilled at sewing, you will truly appreciate a vintage sewing machine. And if you don't have one, even if you love your new machine, I highly suggest you at least consider what it would be like to use something so simple and yet so powerful that has heirloom quality. Thank you all for supporting this channel, and I will see you next time.